Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Dean's Lunchtime Chat. My name is Karen Peters. I graduated from UMass Amherst in 1987. I am currently the parent of a senior at Eisenberg studying marketing, and I am the parent of 3 graduates from Eisenberg. I'm pleased to introduce Ann Massey, the Dean of the Eisenberg School. Ann is going to talk to us today about how Eisenberg has risen to the challenge of continuing operations during these crazy and uncertain times. Dean Massey has been studying and working in information systems for her entire career, and we're very happy to have her leading our efforts to transitioning all teaching, learning, and school programming to the online format this spring. We're even more glad to have her leading efforts to prepare the faculty, staff, and students for whatever is going to be happening in the fall. Regardless of whether or not all students are on campus next fall, it's certainly going to be different than it was last year. I'd also like to introduce Bill Brown, who is taking on the role of Associate Dean for Finance, Operations, and Strategic Initiatives. Associate Dean Brown is a clinical professor of accounting and has served as Eisenberg's undergraduate dean since January of 2018. We've been collecting your questions over the past week. Everyone who sent us questions, we're glad that we know what you've been wondering about. Dean Massey and Associate Dean Brown will be tackling some of the most common and frequently asked questions today, but if you're wondering about other topics or have more questions, just push on the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen and you can type in your question there. A few logistical points to cover quickly. The session is being recorded and all of the attendees in the audience will remain muted with their video off for the duration of the chat. And with that, I'll hand over the microphone or the screen to Dean Massey so she can tell you about her background and explain how Eisenberg's been handling these tough issues.
Well, Karen, first of all, thank you so much for agreeing to serve as our moderator this afternoon. It's a delight to see you again. Karen and I met in Boston face-to-face last fall at an alumni event, so I'm very happy that she is here with us today. I also want to acknowledge my good friend and colleague, Bill Brown. Bill, as Karen said, had served as the undergraduate program associate dean for the last couple of years, doing a stellar job, and is taking on a new role as associate dean in the dean's office. So I'm looking forward to continuing working with Bill. We asked Bill to join us today so that he can speak to many of his insights about the fall with regard to enrollment and students' perspectives and feedback, since he led that effort this spring quite admirably, I must say. For those of you who, I just want to make one comment here. For those of you who weren't aware of this, we did have a senior celebration on May 8th, and we need to thank Marketing, Communications, and Development for support of those activities. We had over 30 videos produced by faculty, staff, alumni, and students that were made available as part of our celebration for both undergraduate and graduates this spring. And hundreds of student photos are available in our virtual yearbook. So it was great fun. And to date, we've had over 4,000 visits to that celebration site. So I think that will continue over the coming weeks. And of course, we're very hopeful that we're going to get the students back on campus this coming year to celebrate in a more traditional fashion. So I look forward to that. I'm going to turn it back over to Susan, and we'll get right into some of the questions that have been raised, and we'll see what we can do this afternoon to address them.
Okay, I believe it's going to be me who's going to ask you the questions.
Yes.
Okay, question number 1. What have been the biggest challenges in making the switch to remote learning? And how did Eisenberg faculty and students handle the transition?
I think one of the, and I know many of our alumni who have in their own work environments experienced this, is one of the biggest challenges was the quickness that we had to do it. And we literally, the students went home right before spring break in mid-March, and the decision was made that we were going to go to remote immediately and that they weren't coming back. And so the faculty had essentially about a week, faculty and our staff had about a week to 10 days to make that transition. And it was just amazing what they did. Our TSS office, our technology support services, just, they carried us on their backs, as I like to say. And the faculty moved their courses such that they could be delivered in a remote fashion. And I think, as many of our alumni know, we have the #1 online MBA program in the country, #3 in the world. So we have a lot of experience over 2 decades with regard to remote and online learning. So that helped us a lot. It didn't mean that there weren't bumps along the way, but the faculty handled it with a bomb. It was just great. And I will say the students did as well. It wasn't what the students expected. It wasn't what the faculty or staff expected, but the students were so supportive of the faculty and really helpful in that regard. So I have to say, Eisenberg, compared to what I've heard outside of UMass and some other challenges even on our UMass campus, really performed well. So this, and Bill, you probably have some anecdotes from conversations you've had with students about this, about their experience.
Yeah, I think that, the Eisenberg students were telling me and my team that, their experience in Eisenberg classes was pretty seamless during the transition. We have a lot of experience in the online education world, probably more than our colleagues all over campus. And so while all the UMass faculty were stepping up and trying to get their courses ready for delivery in the online space, it was a little more seamless, I think, for some of our students in the Eisenberg classes. And we have pockets of expertise in the faculty, scattered across the school. They're just unbelievable online teachers, and they really stepped up and reached out to their colleagues and said, how can we help? How can we help you get your courses online? So I think that sort of collaboration really drove us.
And I think one thing, Karen, with my experience, as you kind of alluded to, I've been studying virtual teams and remote work since my graduate years, for almost 30 years now. And one of the things that I suggested to everyone when we started off, and we implemented this even within the dean's office for internal operations, is to over-communicate. Particularly once you're just getting started and organized, because that remote collaboration, remote coordination, remote communication requires some extra effort. And I think that the students appreciated it from their faculty and their instructors. And I know I appreciate it within the school. So I think we did some of the right things early that hopefully made and by the way, I did brag to some colleagues at former institutions I've been at. UMass, Amherst, and Eisenberg, we did it in a week. We were ready to go the Monday after spring break. Other institutions, it took them 2 weeks. And I said, wow, we apparently know how to do it. So, just a little bragging rights there.
That's great. You deserve it. I know from having a student how seamless it actually was. Okay, the second question we have is, how are you planning for the fall semester, and what are your thoughts on the students being back on campus?
So I think as any institution, both, companies that our alums are working for and the university and other universities, our #1 priority is the safety of our students, our faculty and staff. So, with guidance from, public health officials and so on, that is informing these decisions. So for our alumni, just so you know, there are planning groups. The provost, John McCarthy, is leading a planning effort, and there are multiple task force groups that are working under him and reporting to him, looking at different issues, from safety and health issues to teaching and learning, to work, returning the workforce to campus. All those things are being considered. That group, and Bill and I are on another group that is vetting many of the recommendations that will come out of those. And so the chancellor's goal is to be making a decision in early June, is what we're hoping for. Again, with the recognition that the safety of everyone is paramount. Having said all that, for Eisenberg, what I firmly believe is that we have to look at this not as a problem to be solved, but as an opportunity for us to improve, to be even better than we currently are. And so what I have messaged and talked to our leadership within, all the leadership within the school, and shared with the faculty in an all-school meeting a couple of weeks back, we are going to keep plowing forward. You know, we aren't number one in online education and considered a top business school because we just sit on our laurels or are paralyzed when there's a crisis, right? It's like Andy Grove said, you know, great companies, and I would say great schools like Eisenberg, their response to a crisis to get even better. So what we're doing now is basically telling the faculty, we've got a plan for any eventuality. We need to be able to provide our courses to any student wherever they are. So even if all of the students, even if we said we're going to bring everybody back in the fall, we may have international students that don't get in the country. We may have some students, because of their own health situation, aren't able to come back to campus. And so we need to be able to provide education to them. So I've been working and instructing the faculty, and we will be providing more guidance and support to say, think of that as you rethink your course. How can you deliver it to any student, whether they are sitting in front of you, or they are remote, or they're overseas? It doesn't matter. And our faculty are creative, they're innovative. And this is what I believe is we're going to use this as a moment for us to become even better than we currently are. So I'm taking very positive messaging and looking at this as an investment in our future for us to continue to be a leader in business education, and you know, just doing everything we can for others to look to us, both on campus and off campus.
Okay, thank you. Question number 3 comes from David H., a 1986 Eisenberg graduate, who wants to know how next semester's enrollment looks. How will things like summer orientation be handled?
I'm going to turn this to Bill in a second, because I want Bill to talk particularly about our undergraduate population. But I will just make a couple comments with regard to our interest in our graduate programs. I talked to Linda Eggenhagen, who is our Associate Dean for Graduate Programs, and our numbers are looking very good, both in terms of, in particular, our online interest in all of our online programs, but also interest in enrollments, projected enrollments with regard to our residential programs. So we're looking very, very strong at the graduate level. But I'll let Bill talk more about how things are looking with our undergraduate students as well.
Similarly, very, very strong. I mean, we've got a record class who has deposited with us. The yield actually jumped. So there's a couple of things we watch in enrollment management. One is the yield. That's the number of kids that you've accepted actually deposit. And now we start to worry about what we call the melt, which is the kids who deposited but never show up. And so we've got active plans to manage that as well. But so far, our yield is way up. We're expecting about 150 extra undergraduates, which when you're expecting to take a class about 750, an extra 150 is a pretty large percentage increase. So it's a good problem to have. Our undergraduate enrollments are very strong, and we're doing all sorts of new creative things. As Ann has said, her message to leadership has been over-communicate. We've had our ambassadors, our outstanding undergraduate ambassadors, making phone calls and sending emails to our students who have deposited to make sure that they actually show up in the fall. And so all good things. The other thing, I'll just jump in, one other thing, our summer enrollments are just off the charts. So even though we're not here on campus, students are responding to our online classes and actually trying to get some coursework out of the way this summer. Our online enrollments are up 25 to 30% this summer over a regular, normal summer.
I think that's partially, Karen, in response to what all of us are seeing, is that a lot of the summer work opportunities for students, even the high school kids that are coming in the fall, you know, they've evaporated, or they're not what they used to be, and because of the virus. And Bill said they're taking advantage of, let me get ahead of the game, let me enroll, take some summer classes. And so that's really wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. That makes a lot of sense.
I think we left off the NSO part. So I was going to,
oh, yes.
I forgot to talk about so new student orientation is normally handled here on campus, and the students spend an overnight with a pretty rich program where they get to meet their advisors, and they go through various programs. But the highlight of that is really picking their classes and getting their first taste of academic advising. And so the academic advising team here in Eisenberg has transitioned to an all online NSO, and so we've got it all scheduled out, and we are calling groups of students before. So we're sort of, again, the over communicating. They've still got their meetings with advisors, either through Zoom sessions, through email. There's different modalities that are being used, but also reaching out to groups of students sort of before their session so they know what to prepare for, and after their session, follow up if they have any lingering questions. So sort of this wrap-around approach we hope to be very successful. And like Ann said, this is something that, because we've been forced into this situation, we're learning a lot about how really to add value to the process. What are the most important parts?
And I think, and I will share I have a plant in this whole process. Our younger son is going to be coming into Eisenberg starting in the fall in finance. And so he's experiencing everything that is being delivered for new student orientation, the communications and so on, and has found it to be really helpful, very easy to follow. And so that's gone very smoothly. And we have one other fun thing that we're doing for our incoming class. And some of our alumni kids may be joining us in the fall. We have a yard sign that has been designed and is being sent out here by the end of May. All our incoming class will receive a yard sign that says Destination Eisenberg, UMass Amherst. And so we're hoping they'll stick it right out in their front yard, and it's good advertisement for us. And it just, again, reinforces that we're a family, and we are really looking forward to having those kids join us in Eisenberg. So that was just a fun addition that we added in the last few weeks.
Oh, that's a great idea. Okay, question number 4 comes from John S., class of 1987. He's asked about the economic impact of the pandemic on UMass and Eisenberg. While we know there's still a lot of uncertainty, is there anything you can share about the future financial situation for the university and Eisenberg?
Yeah, not a big surprise. Any or all of us that have been reading the impact of the virus on the bottom line of any organization wouldn't be surprised to know that UMass Amherst, like all of the universities, was really hit this spring when we gave the refunds back on room and board in particular. Once the students went home mid-March, refunds were given back out, and they were well over $40 million. It created about a $45 million deficit for FY 2020. So what Eisenberg, we were in pretty good finance. We run a tight ship. I'm a firm believer in being good stewards of our resources. Bill's smiling, he knows this. And we were in really pretty good shape at the end of the third quarter. What we, like the other units on campus, did was we went through everything and said, what can we save even further? There was not going to be any travel. People weren't going to conferences and the like. And so, we pulled back even further and helped reduce that FY 2020 deficit with some additional savings. There were some other things that have gone on. Leadership of the university, from the chancellor down through the deans, have taken a pay cut of 10%, the chancellor 12% through the end of FY 2021. So everyone has done that. We have had just announced this week, there's going to be staff furloughs agreed to with the unions for 5 days that will help reduce the remaining deficit for FY 2020. So the university has, I think, done a really good job, and in concert with the schools, and the deans, of closing the gap for 2020. The real challenge is the planning we're looking at for FY 2021. And that's where the real uncertainty comes into play of what is the fall going to look like? Are we going to bring students back to campus, and to what degree? Is it 50%, 75%, or 100%? I saw in one of the questions that someone asked online, they said, are we looking at like what Notre Dame is doing? For those of you who aren't familiar with this, Notre Dame, Purdue, and some other institutions have said, we're bringing them back to campus, We're going to alter the fall calendar. We won't have a fall break. They may come back a little bit early, but we will send them home at Thanksgiving. And if there's any programming after Thanksgiving, it will be online. Notre Dame is going to finish by Thanksgiving. That is on the table. John McCarthy, our provost, and all the planning teams are looking at all those different scenarios. But as you might imagine, any of that has implications for the budget. And as most of us know, if we bring back, you know, some percentage of students, we still have to heat the dorms. We still have to have food services open. So there's lots of complexities around this. But what Eisenberg is doing is we're looking very closely at our revenue sources with regard to particular graduate programs. We are running all sorts of scenarios if we have budget cuts. One thing that we don't know yet is what is the state going to do? So the state appropriation to the university, we're not sure of that yet. The state, as we all know, Massachusetts, like every state, is looking at reduced revenues. So we're trying to sort all of that out. But for FY 2020, I think we're closing pretty strong with a balanced budget. But FY 2021, we've still got some work to do and still a great deal of uncertainty around it. And Bill, by the way, is working on the with Andy Mangels, who's a vice chancellor for finance. Bill is on that group, so he's got some, you know, he's helping us out there as well.
Okay, great. The next question comes from Beth, a 1978 graduate of Eisenberg. Are companies still hiring students for internships and jobs given the current business climate? And a related question came in on how the Career Center has been helping students over the last few months.
And I'll speak to the Career Center first and then turn it to Bill. And I'm going to say something about the Career Center and really just give a shout out to them. As I mentioned earlier, you know, they like that just turned on a dime and started providing support to our students remotely. I mean, they've done everything from advising to working with recruiters and alumni. And I want to thank alumni who have stepped up and helped Chase Career Center and the academic departments running Zoom sessions for students, advising students, talking to them about, you know, what the implications are for business and internships and longer term jobs. So, you know, it was kind of all hands on deck. But Bill can probably share some insights about what's going on in the job market.
Yeah, it's early times. As all of you know, we won't have complete data on this year's placement for quite a while. But what we've seen we have anecdotes. We have anecdotes of a lot of firms going to things like, you know, starting remotely or running internships remotely. We have had, you know, unfortunately, we've heard from students that have had offers pulled, but these seem to be in the minority right now. Most firms are looking to either push out a start date or find some other way to get a student to start with a job that they had already secured working remotely. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out over time. I mean, we went into this season very strong with near record placement, what we thought was near record placement, but we never know until the dust settles. And we typically, to be in line with other schools, we don't measure our actual placement rates till about 6 months after graduation. So that would be, you know, late fall or something. So we'll have more information then. But I would say, given what we've seen in the broader economy, the news is not as bad as you might think from the outside. And we just hope that holds. And the Chase Career Center has done, as Ann mentioned, the Chase Career Center has pivoted very quickly under very able leadership in that center. And those of you who've interacted with them know how professional they are. And they basically reached out to departments, academic departments, to make sure students knew that they still had to keep, you know, Ann's message again to the school has been progress, move forward, keep everything moving forward. And so to keep the students to say, yes, you went home and this is unusual, you can't stop, you keep your momentum, keep moving forward. So make sure you're in the search, make sure you've got your resume polished up, make sure you're working on your interviewing skills. And so the Chase Career Center has really been driving that with the help of the academic departments.
Yeah, and I've said, as Bill kind of alluded to, the message within the school, I've said to the school, said in our all-school meeting, our #1 priority is action. And I have said that. I've spoken to so many students. I've had phone calls with students, kind of incoming students. What do I do if you're online in the fall? Should I delay, defer for a semester? Should I do this? Should I do that? or any of our students that are our current students. I said, whatever you do, your priority should be action. Whether it is taking summer courses, whether it is engaging with Chase Career Center, you know, whatever it is don't be paralyzed by this. And we have to keep moving forward. And I think the schools responded really well. And I've had such great interaction. I just love these kids, talking to them on the phone. I've got new friends via email. The students and I are emailing each other back and forth and seeing how they're doing.
Yeah, she froze.
Oh, there we are. I'm still on. Are you on?
I'm on.
Okay. We'll give her a minute to see if she can catch up, and then I'll ask her the next question. Let's give her another second or two. Did you freeze too? Or was it just Ann? Okay.
No, it's just Ann.
If everyone could just hold tight for a minute. We're having some technical difficulties. We'll try to get Ann Massey back on.
A little bit of Murphy's Law going on here. I have meeting after meeting with Ann and nothing ever goes wrong.
Until right now?
Until now.
Right. At first, I didn't know if it was me. It's hard to know.
I think she's...
Okay, she's reconnecting. We'll move on to the next question. Okay, it looks like she's coming on back.
I have this is where you learn
Hi,
working.
Ann. We can hear you now.
Great. I switched from a laptop to my phone. There was a problem with our internet. So
Okay.
that shows you adaptability in a virtual environment.
Good job. Okay, so you answered the last question. Do you want me to move on to the next one, or did you want to say something more?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we can't see you, but we can hear you. At the alumni receptions this year, you spoke about your top priorities, and we're wondering if the current situation has changed any of those priorities.
The short answer to that is no. Although we may say the order, and I didn't particularly have an order, but for those of you who may not have had an opportunity to join us at various alumni events in the fall, the 5 priorities that we identified last fall as a function of me getting a good sense of the school, understanding business education, you know, where we fall in a competitive marketplace. The 5 priorities that we have are the first being, you know, attracting talented students. That's the first one. I mean, that, and all of these priorities, by the way, either sustain or advance Eisenberg's reputation. So that's why these 5 priorities are so important to us. So attracting talented students. The second one is, of course, retaining and attracting talented faculty. The third one is ensuring career success. And when I talk about career success, we've mentioned this a little bit earlier, I'm really talking about the Chase Career Center and our business and professional communications group, right? That's so important. In addition to, of course, we have our student success, which we get through our undergraduate and graduate programs, but career success. The fourth one is creating global and inclusive leaders. We do a lot of work in this space with our students, getting them ready to go out into diverse workplaces. And the last one is really innovating in and around teaching and learning. And so as you think about those 5 priorities and what we've just still are in the midst of, and I would say, you know, we've gone from the resilience phase, now we're to some degree in a recovery phase, and then moving into, as McKinsey says, a reimagination phase, you know, as we look into the coming year and beyond. The 3 things that are really important to us now with regard to the priorities is, one is attracting those talented students, right? Students, what we have heard, and no one should be surprised about this, in particular, first-generation students and underrepresented minorities, many of our students are having, their families are having financial difficulties. So scholarships are so important to these students. We just awarded last week some additional scholarships, and I received so many emails from students. And Bill, you should tell the story of the student you talked to on the phone with regard to when that you told her she had received a scholarship, her reaction.
Yeah, this was a young lady who, again, we chose, this was a scholarship that was pretty much a full ride. We don't have many of those here at Eisenberg, but she was an outstanding academically, in the highest need category, first gen. And so this young lady, we were going to make a real difference in her family's life, and just getting her on the phone. You know, I had sent her an email saying we needed to talk, that I had a scholarship to offer her, and I didn't get a response. And so then I finally got her on the phone, and I said, did you get an email from me last week? And she was sort of, once she knew who I was, she was sort of, I don't know. And I said, well, you would have remembered this email. So I laid out the scholarship for her, and within minutes, she was in tears. This was making such an impact on her and her family. She and almost had me in tears. And as you know, I'm not easily driven to tears, but this was one of those high impact scholarships that just, you know, we could bring her in and make it so that she's not struggling to pay for her school. And she's going to make it, and just our interactions with this young lady and her response to being offered this scholarship was just so Eisenberg-like. And she was just such a class act, wanted immediately to thank the donor and their family, wanted to know who they were. And that was her first ask of me while we were still on the phone is, I need to thank them. And so I'm just, you know, having packed scholarships that we can make sure that we bring these young people on the campus.
And the second area that, you know, has risen up is this ensuring career success. Not a big surprise, as we've talked about a little bit earlier this afternoon. We are investing in the Chase Career Center and the Business and Professional Communications Group. What I'm really looking, that they, as I said, pivoted on a dime, and I've been providing. What we need to also do, because we have such a population of graduate students, online students, we've had these for a long time, and also our so-called lifelong learners, our alumni who go out and maybe they need a new skill, a new competency. We want to be able to provide services to our students and alumni wherever they are. And so ensuring career success is really a lifelong commitment. And so we're investing, and we're going to continue to invest more in Chase and business and professional communications. What I want to do there with those groups is also help them, and they've asked for this. How do we upskill the staff and faculty in those areas so that they can create digital assets that are reusable, that are available? We'll create a digital library. As you can imagine, we have just residentially 3,800 undergraduates. And Bill, how many do we have in Chase, helping staff in Chase? What's the number?
5.
5 to 3,800. So if we can create some reusable digital assets, we're going to be able to service a lot more of our students and our alumni. And the last area, and it's very related to this, is our investments in innovation around teaching and learning. And I said to you earlier that the messaging to the faculty going forward, regardless of what the fall looks like, regardless of whether we've got all the students back or they're 100% remote, I want the faculty to have the skills and the competencies that they can take a look at their courses and get them infused as much technology as possible. We'd like to create a technology sandbox in the school so that faculty and staff can play with new technologies in support of teaching and learning. So these 3 priorities of our 5, and I believe all 5 are essential to us in terms of our reputation as a top business school. But these 3 priorities, I think, have taken heightened importance as a result of what has transpired this spring and will carry us into the fall. So hopefully, Karen, I hope that answers that question.
It does. Thank you. And now we're at our last question. What is the best way for alumni to help students during this time?
I think and I appreciate that question, and we get that a lot with alumni. And first of all, I want to thank our alumni because they have historically stepped when I appreciate that alumni themselves are dealing with significant, challenges, both professionally and personally, right? In your own home situation and your own work situations. And many alumni have stepped up and done panels and continue to help with internships and jobs. So that's always helpful. The 3 priorities that I mentioned, if you can give, and I know that is a difficult time to ask that, but even small amounts, as I always say, in the collective, we can generate good resources. But anything that alumni can do with regard to helping our students on the scholarship side, helping our ensuring career success. We're going to be creating funds around career success. So some of our alumni may be particularly interested in that area, Chase and business professional communications. Others of our alums and donors are interested in areas around teaching and learning innovations and technology. So anything alumni are able to do, whether it's of your time, or if you have some resource that you can help in these priority areas, Eisenberg is greatly appreciative. The students are, the faculty and the staff are as well. So hopefully that, and anybody has any questions, everybody knows you're always welcome to reach out to me personally.
Well, thank you. That was fantastic. I wanted to thank all of our guests for participating in our lunchtime chat with Dean Massey and Associate Dean Brown. We will take a close look at all of the questions that you've asked of us on the Q&A portion of the Zoom, and we will get back to you in the future and hopefully answer those questions. If you missed anything, we've recorded this and we're going to send out an email with the recording so that you can watch it again. Or if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to Eisenberg. Once again, thanks everybody for joining in our lunchtime chat, and hope you all stay safe.
Karen, thank you. You were great. And Bill, thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Have a great long weekend,
Go
everybody.
Eisenberg.
Go Eisenberg.
Bye-bye.